kind of turned out to be the perfect time to buy. There were people who bought a couple of years prior and they might maybe had to wait 12, 18 months before it really kicked on. But obviously in 2020 it turned out to be the perfect time to be getting in, and that's kind of when they bought their first property.
Yeah, great. And then so bought property 1, and then roughly when do they buy property 2? What do they buy? And
so property 1, townhouse in Brisbane, bought for $599 as I mentioned. Property 2 was bought about 12 months later, but it was an off the plan property, and they did that just to give them some time between settling on the two. Property 2 was actually an apartment on the Sunshine Coast. So it was in a part of the Sunshine Coast which was very low levels of supply. A really popular location for downsizers. So apartments were typically what people kind of were looking for. So that owner-occupier appeal was really there.
So, I mean, for those who know Binnari, we don't tend to recommend very many apartments. It tends to be houses and townhouses because we can pretty much know we're not going to get swamped with oversupply in these kind of markets. And when we're buying, helping our investors buy owner-occupier townhouses and houses. But what are some of, when we do consider an apartment, what are some of the things that are crucial when looking at an apartment?
Yeah, I think the supply piece is still really important. So understanding what the councils are likely to let happen in those areas. And this particular suburb was an area that was predominantly newly built out around some of the waterways on the Sunshine Coast. And there was a certain little pocket that was allocated to some more commercial and sort of high density residential. So we kind of knew that it was limited to this area, but also it was quite a boutique apartment complex. And I believe 90% of them, I think these clients were one of a couple who were investors buying into the project.
Yep. So they paid how much again?
$620 on the apartment.
$620?
My memory's not as good as it has been. But
so $620, and roughly we're talking 2022, 2021?
End of 2021 they bought that. So that was bought off the plan. I think it took 18 months obviously for that to be kind of constructed. So they bought property 1 for $599, property 2 for $620 in a period of about 12 or so months.
And what would they be worth now? We're now in 2026. What would they be worth now?
So property 1, based on RP data, is worth just over $1 million. So up about 400,000, and property 2 is worth about 1.2, so up about 600,000. So between the two, about $1 million in uplift.
Okay, and I'm guessing that both of those from a cash flow point of view are probably looking after themselves.
Yeah, well, I think property 1 initially rented at $550, now is getting over $700 a week rent.
Yeah, wow.
So covering itself. And then property 2, I believe, is also renting at quite a strong rate.
Yeah, okay. So that's the beauty of property as well. I mean, those people who are investing, it's that's a great return in the short term, but if you continue to hold these assets, the rental income on those properties will continue to grow. And it tends to be why a lot of people hold things like property and shares in retirement, because it allows you to keep pace with inflation. Because if you simply just put all your money into cash when you retire, the impact of inflation is going to eat away at effectively your income, which eats away at your purchasing power. So it's really important you maintain growth assets like property and shares. So not only have they done well now, but if they continue to hold these assets, they'll just continue to grow.